Hi, everyone. Coming to you here from my home here in Hilliard. I know I we're scheduled this meeting on a short notice, so I'm not upset that nobody came today. I didn't really expect it. I will go through the slides here that I have prepared so that you can have these anyway. As you can see, I'm posting this video online for you to access as you will. Welcome to Anthropology 2202. Introduction to Cultural Anthro. I'm Butch, your teacher. Please call me Butch. Don't call me Mr. Wright, or especially not Professor Wright or Dr. Wright. Haven't done that yet. So here we go. I called this lesson here "One Planet, Many Worlds," and I actually believe that oftentimes you'll hear people say we are all one world. We're not all one world because our worlds are all based on our realities, and the way we view the world is based on our realities, both individually and culturally. And so it's one planet, that's for sure. But the idea that we're just one world, it's not true. I guarantee you that my world is a lot different from the world of an Indonesian fisherman, for example, or of a Kalahari herdsman. So let's kind of delve into that. You don't have to get too deep into this today. This is just the intro. But this is kind of the overarching theme that we're going to be having throughout the semester. So in this meeting, we will talk about who we are and all that. From my own intro video that I posted online, you know who I am. I'll give you a little bit more info now. As I mentioned, my name is Butch. I'm 50 years old. I am a doctoral candidate here at Ohio State in anthropology. I emphasize in my work biocultural anthropology, and environmental adaptations, how people adapt to their environments. And I'm married. I have a son who is 11, going on 12. He's really into football. I'm into sports in general too. I played hockey for several years growing up, but I'm a really big soccer fan. I played soccer in Brazil and in Germany, and I'm kind of a fanatic about the game. Um, my favorite team here in the States is Columbus, of course, Columbus Crew. Um, but more than anything, I think I've always been a West Ham United fan. Yeah, I'm glutton for punishment, forever blowing bubbles, as we say. So, some of my interests include, as I mentioned, sports and fishing. I love to go fishing. I think it's very quiet and relaxing. And when I have a chance, hang out with my friends. Uh, that's it in a nutshell. We'll discuss the idea of anthropology. Now, what is anthropology? We'll go over that in its specific slide. But I can promise you that if you're expecting Indiana Jones kind of stuff, that's not what this is all about. You're expecting dinosaurs. This is not what it's all about. Okay. And then we'll understand the difference between our planet and our world a little better. And then that we'll also learn that being uncomfortable is not actually an opportunity. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. I'm me, but who are you? You are unique. Your own experiences help shape who you are. That's an important thing to remember. Um, Even if you're an identical twin, you'll have different life experiences than your twin will have, and that will help shape you as a person. That'll make you distinct, even though in all other ways you may look alike, you are still unique. And your world and how you interact with it is based on these experiences that you have as an individual. Um, Again, I've had a lot of experiences in my lifetime. I've been to 26 countries, I think. It's something like that. Anyway, I've done a lot of really cool things. You know, back in the army, I used to jump out of helicopters on ropes. What was I thinking? My knees are paying for it today. But all of these have helped shape who I am. Um, but also our culture shapes how we do things. And we have to understand what culture is. What does it mean for you? For the standard textbook definition, they'll say it's the norms, arts, and socially accepted behaviors of a society. It could be a small group of people, it can be a whole nation of people. They talk about your culture, but it's basically the idea of shared ideas, shared norms, shared rules, and what's considered shared accepted behavior. And so, who are you? I will be seeing, I guess, most of you on the discussion boards. And so I'll get to know you a little better. But remember that this is your first chance to kind of give people an idea, to give others an idea of who you really are, what makes you tick. Don't just say that you're a generic person who's just like everybody else or have just two brothers or whatever. Just you need to tell people something that's interesting about yourself, something that's going to stick so that they'll kind of get an idea. Okay, this person's kind of had a really cool experience. I'd like to know more about that. So even though our class is quick, it's only 6 weeks, which is probably going to be shorter than this video. Our class will still be very interactive, even being an asynchronous class as we have. So, what is anthropology? Of course, we have that standard textbook answer again. The study of humans and non-human primates in all places at all times. Well, it's much more than that. It's the study, to me, anthropology is the study of humans. And when I say humans, that can take on a different meaning. If you're a physical anthropologist, then you look at the things that make humans distinct from other primates. If you're a non-human primate physical anthropologist or biological anthropologist, you look at primate behavior and kind of see the kind of things that are reflected in our own behaviors, so social behaviors, the way they handle themselves, body language, all these kinds of things. As a cultural anthropologist, I always harken back to the late anthropologist Roy Rappaport, who taught at the school up north, in which he said you have to distinguish between Homo sapiens and human. Homo sapiens is a biological classification. It's our species, it's what we are. But being human is defined by our cultural behaviors and by how we interact with others and whether we violate rules or whether we accept the rules. And all of that based on individual experiences, based on cultural experiences. All of that kind of leads to the idea of what it means to be human. And that's something we're going to discuss a lot in this class. And so, does this textbook definition describe what it is, what we do as an anthropologist? I don't think so. I think it's a little bit more. When I say study of humans and non-human primates in all places at all times, study is a very vague term. It kind of gives us this idea of someone who's just writing a test, looking at the results, throwing it into a statistics program to see whether or not the results are significant or not. No, it's much more than that. I think that when we study people, we try to understand why it is that they do things the way that they do them. Not everyone does things the same way. A good example is my son and I. We tie our shoes in different ways. My parents taught me one way, but since my son learned how to tie his shoes with his mom, she taught him another way. So perhaps now my way of doing things with my family line will not be passed on to future generations. Maybe from now on, my son will teach his mom's way of tying shoes. And maybe his future significant other someday, his future partner someday, will teach any of their kids to do it my way. Maybe they're the same way. I don't know. But there's different ways of doing things, and how this is transferred from one to another. That's how we end up developing culture. So what does anthropology mean to you? Think about that. Now, over here in this picture, I really like this. This is what we call a chapulín, which is a kind of roasted grasshopper that they eat in Mexico. Delicious stuff. Got some guacamole with a tortilla. You've got the pepper here. I think that a lot of people are probably cringing right now saying, oh, eating bugs. Bugs are great. Bugs are great. Better than some of the beef I've had. I've been to some places where I'm not really sure what they said was beef. So, yeah, chapulín are great. But a lot of people might find that weird. People that eat this every day would think other things weird. So have you traveled abroad? As I mentioned, I've been to like 26 countries. I've been to many states too. Um, I've seen a lot of really cool stuff. I lived in Brazil for 18 years, went to the countryside, worked with the Indians there, and their culture there, their way of doing things and their way of thinking was completely different to me. So, what does that mean? Does it mean that I might have felt uncomfortable at times? Well, of course. Of course, being uncomfortable when you're in an unfamiliar situation is normal. It's overcoming that discomfort to satisfy your curiosity is something that really kind of drives us as people. As an anthropologist, the understanding of why people do things the way they do, what led to them doing things this way, why this kind of behavior exists in this environment. That's what really kind of drives me. So if I'm uncomfortable with something, I do feel uncomfortable. I overcome it really quick because the curiosity for me is far greater than the discomfort. So it's a normal reaction, as I mentioned, and it's an opportunity to experience something new, to learn, and I also would kind of say maybe unlearn, because we're always taught, especially here in the States, that our way of doing things is the best. But is it? There's ways that other people do things that might actually work a little better. If you're interested, I will tell you at another meeting an example of indigenous medicine in the Upper Negro River in Brazil, where I worked, where the indigenous people have a cure whereas we with our Western medicine might do something radical like surgery. So there's other ways of doing things that sometimes unlearning can be really beneficial. And how do we learn about these things? How do we understand why we do this? By asking questions. We try to do what I call icebreakers, which are just simple questions like, what's your perfect day? That's kind of something that you're going to be doing in Challenge 1 coming up. But then you got to dig deeper. You have to understand why these things happen the way that they do. Why do people do these things the way that they do? And the real trick to it is to not be embarrassed to ask the question. It's especially in another language, because a lot of times, I find myself, I speak 12 languages, but sometimes I'll make a mistake in the language. And it happened especially with the Indians, where I said something and they just fell on the ground laughing because what I said actually meant something completely different from what I was getting at. And to this day, they don't let me forget that, but they are very friendly and outgoing, and they answered my questions. So it's very important to not worry about asking the questions. You gotta make sure that you try not to ask offensive questions, but you ask questions that are going to make them really give you good, what we call rich data, something not only answering the question, but give you insight into more things. I always say the best questions are the ones that, if you have one question, leads to another 5 questions. one that kind of has a snowball effect. The more questions you ask, the more questions you have, and the bigger the picture gets, and the deeper you get into the mystery. And challenge one will give you that chance. When you do challenge one, and this is my tip for you, remember that you're asking these people about their lives, why things are the way they are for that person. And you should come away wanting to know more information about that person, understanding you're not going to ever get all the answers with one interview. And you shouldn't try to get all the answers with one interview, but you should come away with your mind working over, oh, right, wow, that was very interesting what they said about this, that they grew up fishing on the Great Lakes with their dad. Why did he go out fishing? What was it about them that led to them going out fishing? Why didn't they go hunting? Why didn't they plan to garden together? Why fishing? And you get these kind of questions that kind of help you build a more complete picture the more you work with the people. And so getting back to the original idea, our planet is amazing, but it's nothing compared to the worlds in it. I mentioned at the start that my world is not the same as an Indonesian fisherman or a Kalahari herdsman. My world is not the same as your world necessarily. We may have a common culture, but that does not mean that the world that my life is engaged in is necessarily the same as yours. And so if you take anything away from this lesson, remember that you are unique. Your experiences are shaping you as individuals. And as individuals, we contribute to culture. We bring our own individual experiences to culture. But by the same token, our cultures influence us as people. So it's very cyclical the way things happen. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to go over a couple pointers here. Let me share screen now for something else. Here we go. This is your first challenge, which will be coming up next week. There's a couple things I want you to remember. First of all, make sure you follow the instructions here. Do not give the name of the person. What we do quite often when we do these kind of interviews is we'll use a pseudonym. We'll use quotation marks around either a fake name or just the person's first name, so we can't really identify who they are. We're not reporters. We are researchers, and we're trying to get an idea of the picture. We're not trying to expose our informants in any way. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We are there to protect their identities. The second thing is, well, here you can see some of the icebreaker questions. The starting the big talk, you get these ideas, you get these questions, you get them talking. And the ideal for the challenges is that when you start getting into the bigger questions, let them do most of the talking. Let them start to break into a narrative, and you make notes. And on these notes, make questions. Why did they say that? Don't interrupt them to ask them. Let them keep talking. And if you want, you circle back to your notes and ask them to follow up on that. Also, we have up here the learning outcomes. These are very important. If you have any questions over what any of these mean, make sure you let me know. Okay? Let's see here. I think that's it for now. As always, I'm available. If you have any questions, you can email me or message me. I'm going to give you a doodle poll coming up here. You all get it in your messenger. Make sure that you answer it. I'm going to try to schedule this meeting for the best possible time frame for you, for the most people next week. Because I think interacting with me is going to be really kind of important, in addition to watching the videos from Dr. Wesh and some of the other videos that we're sharing and the reading material. So if you have any questions, make sure you drop me a line. Thanks for paying attention, and I hope to see and hear from you all soon. Welcome again to Anthropology 2202, Introduction to Cultural Anthropology. And I'll see you next week.